Hey, Aaron, because I know you're probably the only one that's going to watch this, but that's okay. Still having fun. Today we're going to paint some abstract florals, and I have to call them abstract florals because they don't really end up looking like florals, but it was fun. Perfect is boring. I always tell my students that, and I mean it. And we're going to talk about Typhoid Mary, and mostly because I'm super paranoid about this whole virus thing. And one thing I was going to tell you guys is that I've had a really hard time, kind of, not a really hard time, that's kind of hyperbole, as my husband would say. I just don't like saying the name of the virus, so I've been calling it everything else except its proper name. So some of the things my friends and I have been calling it are the Corolla 19, the Catcher in the Rye, the Can't Believe It's Not Butter, the Coronation Street, the Can't Feel My Face When I'm With You. All these, anything that starts with a C basically can replace the name of the virus, just because I'm kind of overreacting, I'm sure, and I'm worked up about it. But I mean, that's what they want you to do, right? They want you to overreact so that we can look back and say, wow, nothing happened. Anyway, I've been doing that my whole life, so I can definitely overreact for you. So let's talk about Typhoid Mary, which was a similar situation. Let's talk about typhoid fever first. We need to know what that is while you watch. Oh, look at that shot. In case you wanted to know how big my ass was. I was trying to be more artistic in these shots, and I was trying to show you like a different vantage point from how I work anyway. And I was trying to commit to, I say there, a limited color palette. I was trying to be like kind of classy and choose like 3 or 4 like muted colors, but I never can do that, so I do fail. So typhoid fever. It's caused by a bacterium called Salmonella typhi and is spread through contaminated food or drinks. And since Salmonella typhi is shed from the body through feces, an infected person can easily transmit the disease while preparing food if they haven't properly washed their hands, which is really disgusting when you think about it, so you know how you got it. Early typhoid fever symptoms were similar to the flu, and infected individuals experienced stomach pains, headaches, and often a loss of appetite. So that's the fever. I'm actually looking at a picture of the fever. Like it says, it's an image showing Salmonella typhimurium in an infected mouse gut. Anyway, let's move on to Mary Mallon. Mary Mallon was an Irish immigrant who came to be known as Typhoid Mary because she came to the United States as a teenager, and to survive, she became a household cook. So in 1906, Mary was hired as a cook by Charles Henry Warren and his vacationing family. So not long after she was hired, 6 of the Warren household members were infected with typhoid fever. So he was rich enough, he could hire someone to determine where the infection came from. So he hires a sanitary engineer, which I don't even know if there's such a thing as that today. That sounds weird. Sanitary engineer. I'll have to look that up. Anyway, this guy's name was George Soper, and he had experience with typhoid fever outbreaks. Now, before I forget, I'm getting my information from Wikipedia and I think it's called allthingsexplained.com, something like that. It's a really good website. Those are the 2 main sources, and then I think I browsed around a couple of podcasts, a couple of other things to see what I could find out. So, anyway, let's talk about George Soper. So, George had eventually come to the conclusion that Mary was what they call a healthy carrier. So, she claimed that she was never infected, but yet she seemed to be the force behind all the other infections in this family. So through blood and stool samples collected by officials, the government arrested Mary, and they put her in a forced quarantine in North Brother Island in the name of public safety. And if I don't run out of time, I might read a letter that she wrote while she was there. But it does seem like it might be a bit long and boring, but Also, she's so sassy, it might be entertaining. We'll just see where we get to. Because this is like 31 minutes. Even though I gotta say that this painting took me 2 days and probably 6 hours because I sped this up 4 times regular speed. I don't paint or draw as quickly as it looks like I am right there. So I had to speed it up because it would be way too long and boring. Anyway, so Mary was put in this forced quarantine and she was pissed. She refused to believe that she was a carrier and she fought back and she sued the health department in 1909, which I think is pretty badass for a woman who immigrated from Ireland and became the cook for a rich family. And then she was forced into quarantine. They told her that she was a carrier of the typhoid fever. Anyway, so scientists had recently discovered at that time that there were some individuals that can carry it. And I guess their immune system, their response would protect them, but they would also be a carrier in terms of passing it to other people. But it kind of does gross me out. Like, all she had to do was wash her hands. I don't want to pick on poor Mary because it seems like it sucked to be her too, but like, even if you were a carrier, you just had to wash your hands after you used the bathroom before you cooked. Like everybody should do anyway. And speaking of that, this fever, no, not fever, the virus or whatever. I went to Sobeys today because I need to get a few groceries, and I was a little bit paranoid when I was there. But there was no bread and there was no toilet paper. And those are two things that I just don't think you would have to stock up on if you were worried about being in quarantine for, months and months or whatever this is going to turn into. I'm not sure. Do they think that bread is going to last? Or I guess maybe they have freezers and they can freeze it. I don't know. It'd be interesting to get in some people's heads. So, we're back with Mary. She loses her case against the health department. Mary Mallon is her, if I didn't say at the beginning, is her proper name. And she was released from her forced quarantine after a couple of years. So in order to control this typhoid fever, which was problematic, she was quarantined for a number of years. And when things slowed down in the sense of the fever, she was released. And she immediately got a job as a cook. So she fully believed she was not a carrier of the dangerous illness, but she did end up infecting more and more people, and then she was forced into quarantine again. So they did catch her. She was not supposed to cook. She was not supposed to work with food. She was not supposed to work in people's homes. Because she was a carrier and was never going to be sick herself, she needed to keep her distance. And Mary said, no, screw that. So, and there's pictures of cartoons, I should say, of Mary, and they're kind of, I'm sure it's propaganda in lots of ways, but she's cracking eggs into a frying pan, and the eggs are like little skulls of like the people apparently she's killed by infecting them. But the truth is, I don't think she infected a number of people, but not very many of them actually died. I think it's under 10. So, yes, more about Mary. Let's just see here. Okay. If you want to just pour a glass of wine while I'm looking for the rest of my notes, you can just do that. Okay, here we go. So, Mary Mallon was born September 23rd, 1869 in Cookstown, a small village in the north of Ireland. And it was a very poor village. So, here it is right here. Only 3 confirmed deaths were actually linked to Mary. Now, she did continue to be a cook long after she was told by the government she was not allowed to and that she was a carrier of the fever. So we don't really know how many deaths may have been prevented had she had listened, but they can only really link 3 to her. But the historians are saying she infected at least 51 people. So, one thing that Mary did as she moved about the country looking for work as a cook was she changed her name. And that was in the days where you couldn't change your name now, you'd be caught so quick. But I think in 1906, if you changed your name and, made up a different story, and how are they going to know? It's not like people had documents. No, I don't know. I'm not a historian, but I think it was probably pretty easy for her to do. So, It's possible that the death toll could have been much higher because of these aliases. However, and she's in New York, sorry, at this time, going around looking for places to cook for these people. Every time I say it, it kind of grosses me out because I do think she's kind of badass for fighting the government and refusing to believe she's a carrier, and maybe she wasn't. I think science says she is, but who am I? However, I feel like she needed to be washing her hands. That part's bothering me. I mean, they tell you how it's like pink eye. Kids get pink eye because they don't wash their hands. But and I know adults get it from their kids, but if you're getting it and you don't have kids, and Mary is passing on anyway, kind of gross. Sorry about that. So let's just pause for a second. I hope you're having a glass of wine with me. After I block in all my shapes of these flowers, I just took kind of a darker color and made the lines like just kind of messy and random to try to make them look like roses, because there's really I don't know any other way to do it. I just kind of copy what I see, and it looks like there's just kind of lines on either side that sort of they don't match up with each other. And I kind of like those colors. And if I know me, and I haven't watched this yet, I'm probably going to come in with a color and just kind of squish that all together because that looks too clean or something. I like it to look really overworked, which is like the story of my life. All right, back to Mary. So Mary Mallon was the picture of health. And so though she was a carrier from a really, harmful bacteria that was extremely contagious, she never demonstrated any symptoms. So this is why she didn't believe that she was a carrier. However, she was just immune to it. She denied having ever been sick, and so likely this is why she didn't believe that she was a carrier, and she thought she was a scapegoat. And there really was no one else in history, as far as we know, that sort of had the same being a healthy carrier that chose to work with people and food and caused so many cases. She liked to work for affluent families, so of course she wants to be a servant, but she wants to work for the rich. So in their kitchen, she was cooking for some of the richest, most elite families in New York, and they had the money and the means to discover why they were sick and find the pathological answers to why they were sick, which was Mary's downfall. So I did tell you that in 1906, the banker Charles Warren's household, 6 of them contracted the fever, and so that's where they really got Mary's name on the books. So she was making, this is so gross, she was famous for making peach ice cream. So they decided that her handmade, I guess there's probably no other way to make ice cream in 1906, her handmade, hand-cooked peach ice cream, combined with her poor hand-washing skills, were what really sparked the typhoid fever outbreaks in New York in early 1900s. Now, doctors theorized that she had passed along the germs, Mary Mallon, by failing to vigorously scrub her hands before handling food, which they're telling us to do now with this virus. See, I know what it's called. I don't know why I won't say it. That's weird. I think I'm probably more afraid than I should be. But I guess that can't really hurt. However, since the elevated temperature necessary to cook the food that Mary cooked, that would have killed, this is how they know it was the ice cream, like cooking food would have killed the bacteria, the fever, the bacteria that produced the fever. So it was the ice cream that was uncooked that, was the problem. That's how they figured that out, which I thought was kind of interesting because, anything that she cooked may have been contaminated, but it killed the germs. All right. Okay, Soper, who was the sanitary engineer from earlier in this story, um, checked in to Mary and placed her in forced confinement multiple times because once she was released, she went to cook again and she was brought back. But they believe that William Randolph Hearst may have bankrolled Mary's suit because she didn't want to be obviously in confinement and in isolation, but she was a poor cook who had immigrated from Ireland, so she did. We think there was as if I'm okay. Taking a break because I just said we as if I'm one of these researchers. I'm just reading shit from the internet to you. Mm. I don't know why you guys listen to this shit. Anyway, in isolation, she had a fox terrier, and she wrote, this is not the big long letter I'm going to read to you, but it's just a quote. Why should I be banished like a leper and compelled to live in solitary confinement with only a dog for a companion, which doesn't sound horrible at all to me, but anyway, she sued the health department. Well, I talked about before. She did lose, but people, when researching this case, wanted to know where she got the money because, a poor cook is not going to be able to have the money to hire a lawyer to sue the health department or any other organization. So speculation had fallen on the Hearst, who was a newspaper magnate, William Randolph Hearst, who was interested in her story and read her story in the papers, and may have visited her and encouraged her to do the lawsuit. So as soon as she was out, multiple times she broke her promise to stay out of the kitchen, and in 1915, there was an outbreak of typhoid fever at Manhattan Sloan Maternity Hospital. 25 workers were struck with typhoid fever, and 2 of them were killed. So the epidemic was traced to the hospital's cook, whom the staff had named Typhoid Mary. Little did they know that it was actually Mary Mallon, and she was at this time going by the name Mary Brown. So the health department had lost track of her, which, like I say, would not have been hard in 1906 or upwards to I think this might have been in 1915. They lost track of her, but all she did was change her name to Brown. So this is the second time she's confined to North Brother Island. The second time she's confined, she is forced to spend 26 years in isolation. And so she was told not to cook for people. She was told to keep her distance. I guess technically she broke, I don't know if that would be considered a law or a rule or whatever. So they put her away for 26 years. The last 23 years of her life, she was a prisoner in forced isolation because they did add the 3 years that she stayed in isolation the first time they discovered she was a carrier of the fever. She was still asymptomatic, and in her whole 26 years of forced isolation, she had no symptoms. She was living alone in exile. She did have the dog, but she was completely firm in her stance that she was not a carrier, and she was not infecting the people that she was working for. So she cooked for herself in isolation with her dog until she died on November 11th, 1938. So that's basically the story of Mary Mallon. And the way I tell things, I know is probably a little bit jumbled, but I think you get the idea. Poor immigrant wants to cook for wealthy families, infects them. They find it as her. They put her in isolation. They let her go. She, goes and does exactly what she's told not to and infects more people, and they put her away for good. But she kind of has a little bit of attitude. So I want you to, because I do have time, I'll read the letter that she wrote, some of it anyway, it's super long. And you'll see by the way she writes and the way she speaks that she's not a pushover. So this is Mary. In reply to Dr. Park of the Board of Health, I will state that I am not segregated with the typhoid patients. There is nobody on this island that has typhoid. There was never any effort by the board authority to do anything for me excepting to cast me on the island and keep me a prisoner without being sick nor needing medical treatment. When I first came here, they took 2 blood cultures and feces, went down 3 times per week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday respectively, until the latter part of June. After that, they only got the feces once a week, which was on Wednesday. Now they have given me a record for nearly a year for 3 times a week. So just stopping there, I don't know why she felt. Maybe she had to put that detail in because it was part of a case that she was building, but that seems very detailed. Continuing on. When I first came here, I was so nervous and almost prostrated with grief and trouble. My eyes began to twitch and the left eyelid became paralyzed and would not move. It remained in that condition for 6 months. There was an eye specialist visiting the island 3 and 4 times a week. He was never asked to visit me. I did not even get a cover for my eye. I had to hold my hand on it whilst going about, and at night tie a bandage on it. In December, when Dr. Wilson took charge, he came to me and I told him about it. He said that was news to him and he would send me his electric battery, but he never sent. When I read this earlier, I didn't understand what that meant. And I still don't. However, my eye got better thanks to the Almighty God, and no thanks in spite of the medical staff. Dr. Wilson ordered me Urotrophin. I got that on and off for a year. Sometimes they had it and sometimes they did not. I took the Urotrophin. I should have looked that up before this, but for about 3 months, all told, during the whole year. If I should have continued, it would certainly have killed me, for it was very severe. Everyone knows, who is acquainted in any kind of medicine, that it's used for kidney trouble. When in January 1908 they were about to discharge me, when the resident physician came to me and asked me where I was going when I got out of here, naturally I said to New York. So there was a stop put to me getting out of here. Then the supervising nurse told me I was a hopeless case, and if I'd write to Dr. Darlington and tell him I'd go to my sister's in Connecticut. Now I have no sister in that state or any other in the U.S. Then, in April, a friend of mine went to Dr. Darlington and asked him when I was to get away. He replied, "That woman is all right now, and she is a very expensive woman," which I would love someone to say that about me. That woman is all right now, and she is a very expensive woman, but I cannot let her go myself. The board has to come around Saturday. When he did, Dr. Darlington told this man, "I have nothing more to do with this woman. Go to Dr. Studiford." He went to that doctor and he said, "I cannot let that woman go, and all the people that she gave the typhoid to, and so many deaths occurred in the family she was with." Dr. Studiford said to this man, "Go and ask Mary Mallon and Envigle on Vigil her, I don't know, to have an operation performed to have her gallbladder removed." Maybe, this is not me reading, but maybe they thought her gallbladder was the problem and that would solve her as a healthy carrier. Okay, back to the letter. "I'll have the best surgeon in town do the cutting," I said. No knife will be put on me. I have nothing the matter with my gallbladder." Dr. Wilson asked me the very same question. I also told him no. Then he replied, "It might not do you any good." Also, the supervising nurse asked me to have an operation performed. I also told her no, and she made the remark, "Would it not be better for you to have it done than remain here?" I told her no. There is a visiting doctor who came here in October. He did take quite an interest in me. He really thought I liked it here, that I did not care for my freedom. He asked me if I'd take some medicine if he brought it to me. I said I would, so he brought me some anti-ototox and some pills. Then Dr. Wilson had already ordered me brewer's yeast. At first I would not take it, for I'm a little afraid of the people, and I have a good right, for when I came to the department they said they were in my tract. Later, another said they were in the muscles of my bowels, and latterly they thought of the gallbladder. I have been, in fact, a peep show for everybody. Even the interns had to come to see me and ask about the facts already known to the whole wide world. The tuberculosis men would say, "There she is, the kidnapped woman." Dr. Park has had me illustrated in Chicago. I wonder how the said Dr. William H. Park would like to be insulted and put in the journal and call him or his wife Typhoid William Park. And it's signed Mary Mallon. So that letter is of public domain, but I did get it from Christopher Klein, was the author of the website where I found this letter. So she wrote that to the editor of the New York American, and so she knew people were calling her Typhoid Mary, and she didn't like it. She later readdressed the same letter to her lawyer, and she was using it to petition for release from her final quarantine, when we know that she was not quarantined. William H. Park, he was the head of the New York Department of Bacteriology Lab, and he was in charge of collecting samples from Mary. And she was not a fan of him, clearly. What else did I forget to tell you? Typhoid microbes can lodge in the gallbladder, but even then it was known that removing the gallbladder didn't guarantee that it would rid her of typhoid or being a carrier. So that at that time, dangerous infections could follow operations, so she was probably correct to avoid that surgery. So poor Mary. I do feel bad for her when I think about it. I know she maybe should have listened, because sometimes the medical professionals know what they're talking about, but sometimes they are just like, I don't know, white-haired old men that think they know what they're talking about. So maybe, well, she certainly didn't need to be quarantined for 26 years of her life. They could have done something for her, I'm sure, beyond that. But that is the sad and depressing existence of Mary Mallon, Typhoid Mary. I don't know why I chose that topic, other than I'm really worked up about the current virus situation, so I thought I'd talk about an older one. So we're getting to the end here. I'm not even done. I don't know why I'm doing an up close, a slow motion up close of, yeah, I'm going to add, I knew I was going to do something else as I watched this. I was going to add details. I love when I finish a painting, as imperfect as it is, and I go in with like markers. Yeah, paint markers, sparkling markers. I don't care. White, black would be my favorite, but color. Look, I'm going to put, I think this marker gives out on me. Now this, what size is this paper? Let me just look. 11 inches by 15 inches. I do kind of like how these turned out. I think I would have liked to frame them, but the frames would be more expensive than it would be worth to put these pieces up. But I just pin them to my vision board, or the board I have in front of my Cricut where I sit and do work. And I kind of like them pinned there. I put little like fairy lights around them, and kind of make me think of spring. So it was fun. It was therapeutic to do the paintings, and it's kind of nice to look at them in front of me right now. I'm chatting with you guys. I mean, I guess it's probably still just Erin, if she's even still here listening. But I kind of like them. I don't know if in the end I show you. I think I do a little shot of where I put them. If you don't have one of these, I don't like when I say vision board. It's not. I don't mean like hippy dippy. You know, put a car on that you hope to get, or put a job. I'm not putting things up that I hope to manifest into my life. I don't think like that at all. I'm just putting things that I think are like pretty, or things that I like, or things that make me think of the season. Like when it was Halloween, I had really cool spooky stuff up, and I haven't really changed it since Halloween. So now I'm just changing it to spring florals, and I'll probably put some other little art pieces that other people have done. I follow a couple people on Patreon and YouTube, and like James Burke and Catnip, and I like Emily Harvey. And I've ordered a couple little tiny prints from them, because I don't have a huge art budget. I don't really have an art budget, but I have to have little pieces, little prints. So I'll put those up, because they're kind of the season. I just want to look at things that are making me think of spring and happy and warm, and I can't wait till all this craziness is all done. So, hopefully that entertains you or put you to sleep, because both are good things. Thanks for watching, and don't forget that perfect is boring. So if you did want to try this, go for it. Just do what I did. I had no plan in the beginning. I had no anything. I didn't have an end in sight. I didn't know what was going on. As usual, I've got to show you how I hung it up, and I put it on my vision board. They're far too big, but it does look cute. It must be coming here soon. I'm just putting the last little bits of white. Oh, you know what you could do? If you can think of any other funny names for the virus that starts with a C, if you're listening, could you put it in the comments? My favorite is the Coronation Street, but maybe you can think of something better. Just using the white to fix where the paint went under the washi. Oh, see, there it is. I hung it up, put the fairy lights. It's pretty. It's kind of fun. I like it. I do know the whole time I was painting that, I was not worrying about the current outbreak. And there's the final. Thanks, guys. Bye.